Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the core ideas of Alcoholics Anonymous. We're going to be using their new Plain Language Big Book as our guide. It's a version designed to make the original text a lot more accessible. We're going to break down how this fellowship sees the problem of alcoholism, where it all started, and what its unique program for recovery is all about.
So let's kick things off with this really powerful quote from Dr. Silkworth. Now, he was one of the very first doctors to give the AA program a medical thumbs up. He noticed this strange phenomenon in his patients. They'd have just one drink, and it was like a switch flipped. This intense craving would take over, and, as he puts it, it was completely beyond their mental control. That one idea, that this isn't about willpower, is pretty much the bedrock of everything AA is built on.
So what does that phenomenon Dr. Silkworth was talking about actually feel like? Well, the book defines it as an irresistible urge. We're not just talking about wanting a drink. This is an obsession, something that can force a person to drink even when every fiber of their being is screaming not to. This is the core problem they're talking about, a compulsion so strong that willpower just doesn't stand a chance.
And that leads us to AA's first and maybe biggest insight. They were really pioneers here because they completely reframed the problem. They said, hey, this isn't a moral failing. This isn't a lack of character. They defined it as a legitimate illness, one that hits a person on two fronts, physically and mentally.
The book breaks it down like this. Think of it as a two-headed beast. First, you've got the allergy of the body. That's the intense, uncontrollable physical craving that ignites the second you have that first drink. Then, you've got the obsession of the mind, those constant nagging thoughts about drinking that can hound you even when you're completely sober. It's that vicious 1-2 punch that makes the whole thing so baffling and so hard to beat on your own. So if that's the problem, where did the solution come from? You might think it came out of a research lab or a doctor's office, but nope. It started with a simple conversation between two guys who pretty much everyone, including themselves, had written off as hopeless.
And check out how fast this all happened. So in late 1934, you have Bill W., a stockbroker whose life has been totally wrecked by booze. He has this powerful spiritual experience, and suddenly the desire to drink is just gone. But a few months later, he's on a business trip, and he feels himself slipping. He's terrified. And in that moment of desperation, he realizes he needs to talk to another alcoholic. He finds a local doctor, Dr. Bob, and that conversation in June 1935 is what we now know as the start of AA.
And right there, that's the light bulb moment. That was the core principle they just stumbled upon. Doctors, family, friends, nobody could get through to them. But another alcoholic, they could. There was this immediate connection, a shared understanding of that desperation. It created this incredibly powerful bond, and that became the foundation for the entire fellowship.
Okay, so what came out of this discovery? It turned into something much more than just talking. It became a practical, step-by-step program of action. The whole point is to bring about what the book calls a spiritual awakening, basically a complete shift in your entire way of thinking. And this program, it's called the 12 Steps.
Now, there are 12 steps in total, but these 4 give you a real feel for the whole journey. It all starts with surrender, just admitting that the problem is bigger than you are. From there, you move into some really deep self-reflection, taking an honest look at yourself. Then comes action. You actually go out and make things right with the people you've harmed. And it all leads to service, doing the exact thing that started AA, which is helping someone else who's still stuck.
All right, now we get to a phrase that can be a real sticking point for a lot of people. God as we understood him. Yes, the steps use the word God, but the whole program is designed to be spiritual, not religious in a dogmatic way. And those 4 little words, as we understood him, are the absolute key to making it work for everyone. So what does this actually mean? It means the whole idea of a higher power is intentionally vague. You get to define it for yourself. For some people, sure, it's the God of their religion. But for others, it might be the AA group itself, or nature, or just any power that's greater than their own ego. The book makes it super clear that this flexibility is what opens the door for anyone, no matter what they believe or don't believe.
Okay, so if the steps are for the individual's recovery, how does the group as a whole manage to survive? I mean, as AA got bigger, it ran into all the usual problems. Arguments about money, leadership, how to deal with the public. To handle all that, they came up with another set of principles, the 12 traditions.
This is probably the clearest way to get it. The steps are the roadmap for the individual. They're all about me getting well. The traditions are the roadmap for the group. They're all about us staying healthy and unified and not letting human nature tear the whole thing apart. So these traditions are basically the guardrails that keep the fellowship from driving off a cliff. By being self-supporting, they don't have to answer to any outside money or influence. By focusing on attraction rather than promotion and staying anonymous at the public level, they make sure it's always about the principles, not about personalities. This way, no single person ever becomes the star or the guru of AA.
So what happens when you take this incredibly effective program for individuals and you pair it with these genius principles for keeping the group safe? Well, what you get is a structure that allowed for, honestly, explosive growth. It's what turned AA into a worldwide fellowship.
I mean, just look at this number. The growth was staggering. Just think about it for a second. This whole thing started with a conversation between two guys in 1935. 20 years later, there were over 150,000 members. It was all the proof anyone needed that this simple, person-to-person, totally non-professional approach actually really worked.
And this really gets to the core of it all. AA isn't just about not doing something. It's about building a whole new way to live. The book actually says the fellowship itself becomes the replacement for alcohol. It's a new place to turn for relief from all that stuff. The boredom, the worry, the loneliness that used to make a drink seem like such a good idea.
And that kind of leaves us with one big final thought. You've got this model that has saved millions of lives, and it's done it with no professional staff, no fees, no central leader calling the shots. It's all based on one person helping another. So what does its wild success tell us about our deep, fundamental human need for shared experience? Why is that simple, honest connection so profoundly powerful? Something to think about. That's it for this explainer. Thanks for joining us.